All right, we're back. Chris Vernon Show. And we've been talking to you last couple of weeks after I went out to the Temple game. And Devin had alerted us that one of the top 10 teams in the country was here in Memphis, the Memphis women's soccer team. And so I went out to that Temple game a few weeks ago. And since that point, they still have not lost. And they swept the conference slate and now won another AAC title. And their coach, Brooks Monaghan, is in studio with us. Thanks for coming in, man.
Yeah, man. Thank you for having me.
So you've been there since 2000?
Since as the head coach.
Yeah.
And I played 92, 93, 94, and then they started a women's program in 95, and that's when I joined on as an assistant. So been there a long time.
All right. How much different is it now running that program than when you first took it over?
First, I didn't know what the hell I was doing when I first took it over. Sometimes I still ask myself, do I know what I'm doing? But no, I have, it's night and day, really. And, it's a live and learn process. I've made a lot of mistakes along the way, but always surrounded myself with good people. And, the first, probably 4 or 5 years was a little bit up and down. Mm-hmm. And then, once we got to about 2005, 2006, we really started rolling, man. And we won from 2007 through 11. We won 5 championships in a row. And really, it's just, we've been able, for the most part, keep it at a pretty consistent top 25 program.
Do you feel like that's when you guys really made a name for yourself and you thought things were changing? Now, all of a sudden, when you're out recruiting players, that once the name gets on the map, obviously you got to stay on the map, but that was kind of the turning point?
Yeah, I mean, it's at first, as you know, right, that first year you make the tournament, everybody's like, who the hell is Memphis, right? And then you do it again. They're like, Memphis. And then you do it again and again and again. And then, so it still took a few years, but, I think, in the big picture, we've gained a lot of respect just on the recruiting trail through club, with recruiting's everything, right? With
sure.
Just our name being out there. You know how it is. We live in the Power 5 world. And I think that most club coaches that we're dealing with through recruiting, lump us into a Power 5 women's soccer program.
Gotcha. How do you go about recruiting?
Yeah, unturning every rock that you come across, to be honest with you.
Do you just have to go to games all the time? Or are you getting videos? I don't know. It's not the same as going to say. I guess you have to try to schedule and then go to as many tournaments as you can to try to see players same way AAU coaches would, or college coaches would go to an AAU tournament or something.
Yeah, I mean the demographics have changed, right? And there's the top league in the U.S. is called the ECNL, and then there's other leagues underneath that. So we focus a lot on those top leagues, and they have, there's teams from all over the country that are part of these leagues, and then they have, 5 or 6 tournaments a year where all these teams come together. But we're not just a domestic team, right? I mean, our niche has really been Canada.
How did that happen?
To be honest, program was started in 1995, so the previous coach before me had a contact in Edmonton, Alberta. And when he started the program, he brought in 3 kids. They happened to be probably the top 3 kids on the team. So then when I took over, I continued those relationships with Edmonton, and over time was able to grow it, I should say, right? And so now we have kids from the East Coast to West Coast. We have kids from Nova Scotia all the way to British Columbia. So, but like I said, it's become, I think, if you're not that destination school, or you're not a Power 5, I think, one of the most important things is to find that niche. And Canada really has been that for us.
How much have things changed for you with the ongoing changes in college athletics? We obviously talk so much about the 2 big men's sports, and we talk about NIL and what's happened with college basketball and what's happened with college football. What about in like a women's soccer program at a place like Memphis? How much has this trickled down and affected the way you do business?
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, and you remember, you've been doing this for a while, that you really didn't have to deal, as I was talking about earlier, that Power 5, right? I mean, it wasn't, you could talk a little bit conferences and stuff like that, but now, people try to use that against us. But when you're a consistent, top 25 program, you can kind of say, well, we beat those teams. You know what I mean? You know, the NIL, you know, I always say, people always ask about that. Obviously, with what Penny's dealing with and Ryan's dealing with, man, I hope I'm retired if there's ever that trickle down where we're in that same boat, to be honest with you. I mean, in my eyes, it's madness, but we still have to deal with it a little bit. You know, like this year.
Have you had it happen yet where you've gone and talked to a girl and said, well, so-and-so school is going to give me 10 grand if I go there or whatever?
It's been brought up a couple of times, like, you know, what's the NIL process like at Memphis? And to be honest with you, I mean, you know, the people that we deal with at Memphis, there's some great opportunities for our kids that they've taken advantage of, and it's some good extra money in your pocket, right? It's not, you know, we're not paying players yet, but you have heard around the country a few things where, you know, there's a school in the SEC that was trying to hold on to a grad player or whatever, and they were able to put together 30 grand, and you know, it hasn't got there day in and day out, but you know, as you know, sports is, I mean, everything's about a trickle-down effect. You know, when you have a top football team, usually your soccer team's getting nice stuff.
Well,
right?
and the other thing that's had a profound effect is the transfer portal.
Yeah.
Has that affected you in the same way?
I think how the transfer portal has affected us has been is positive because we win, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
so people want to come there.
They want to come here, but also, you know, look, when you recruit, there's good surprises, bad surprises. Not every kid you recruit ends up being good enough, and that's okay.
Yep.
There's a place for everybody. So, you know, kids that come to Memphis that may not be good enough to be on a top 25 team or to play consistently, you know, being at Memphis opens a lot of doors for those kids, right? Because I believe in, you know, being open, being honest with our kids, and at some point, you know, if we feel a kid can't play at our level, we'll let them know. But we're not going to kick them to the curb. We're like, hey, we'll help you find that next place. So when they enter the portal, man, they're getting hammered. And that's a compliment, right?
Yep.
Because our program is at a good place, and a lot of coaches are like, well, if she was at Memphis, then she'd be good for us.
Yep. Is this one of your best teams?
Yeah, it's one of
Because,
our
I mean,
best,
it's like,
for
when
sure.
it's 3 straight, it feels like it's kind of building towards, right? And you obviously made the Sweet 16 last year, knocked off St. Louis, you know, at the Mississippi State win. And so it feels like, you know, it's been gaining momentum. Obviously, your record was outstanding this year.
Yeah, no, it's definitely – this team is different than last year's team, though, right? Last year, to be honest with you, we didn't start that strong, had some things as a team dealing with, and then finally, you know, kind of got it together and then went on this run. And, you know, what was so interesting about last year's team, you know, once we got to the conference tournament, I actually could use the underdog, you know, the underdog card, right? And
Nobody believes in us.
That's right. It's always easier to be the underdog, right? Where this year, you know, as soon as the rankings came out preseason, we were ranked in the top 25. So from day one, we had a target on our back, right? And that's not easy, right? Because what's happened to us is we've gotten every team's best game, you know, and the lower that number by your name, right, the bigger the target is. And that's kind of what's happened. So that's one thing that I've been extremely proud of this group for being able to deal with that, because it's
not easy, no. Right? Because, like, the stakes for the team that is playing against you, it can make their season by catching a win over a team with 100%. A little number next to their name. Whereas for you, any loss becomes a disappointment.
That's right. That's right. And teams, you know, when they're playing you, they have nothing to lose. Right, because they're supposed to lose to you, and you know, when teams are, you know, laid back and comfortable and whatever, that's when a lot of teams are at their best.
Yeah, you know, you haven't gotten to play that, but I feel like you can now. Because I'll say that seeding is BS. Like, I'm like, they're in the top 10 in the like, what? How do you get a 6 seed? This is where women's soccer is no different than, like, say, the NCAA tournament, where it's like, okay, the non-Power 5 school has got to play the Power 5 school, and they're got a 6 seed. Like, what is going on here?
You know, I've gotten
how can that be? Even if you just lined it out, right? What does that make you? The 20? Even if you're the top 6 seed, you're what?
24. 20, I mean, 6, because, I mean, it's
you're like, you're in the top, you're like 20 to 24.
Well, and the thing is, right, in our sport, there's two different rankings, kind of like a football, basketball. One of them doesn't mean a lot, and we've been 3 or 4 in that one. The other one is the Coaches Bowl, which we're 8 or 9 in that one. Then there's the RPI, which we are 14 in that one. So when you start doing the math, we have the longest winning streak. We've given up the least amount of goals in the country. So you're like, you take everything that's in front of you and say, how the hell can we be a 6 seed, right? And so
is there a committee like basketball?
There is a committee.
But nobody knows it. They don't go on CBS and have to answer for it.
That's exactly right. I wish I knew the committee, But yeah, I mean, it's head scratching. It's a little bit disappointing, but
no, you get to do it now.
Yeah.
The whole year you've been the target on your back, and now it's like they don't think you deserve to be. Like, look at what they gave these teams ahead of you.
No, absolutely. So, for me, I mean, once you get to the tournament, and it's our sport has really grown. Back in the day when you and I were kids, it was North Carolina, and they won 20-something national champions, and nobody could touch them, right? So, I mean, now, you're seeing more upsets. It's getting closer. I mean, which is good, right?
Yeah.
The growth of the sport. So, I mean, don't get me wrong. On paper, are there a few cupcake games in my eyes? Yes. Do we have one? No. We play LSU, but once you get past that first round, I mean, most everybody is really good, But it does, going back to what you said, it's it's
annoying.
Yeah. Yes. Absolutely.
After you have that amazing season,
Absolutely.
It's like it was just not what the expectation was. What did you think you were going to get? Like a 3? 3 or 4?
3. Yeah, 3. 3, maybe a 4. And and I mean, I knew the guy.
Because even if they hold it against you and put the Power 5 schools ahead of you, at least I'm still, in this mix with the top 4 seeds.
That's right. And I was able to talk to one of the people that I know that was on the committee last year.
And you told him to go to hell.
No, it was last year, but he actually sent me a text. He's like, dude, you got screwed. And I'm like,
what?
You're telling me? Yeah. But he was not on the committee. He was on it last year. So if he was on it this year, maybe we wouldn't have got screwed.
Yeah. And especially because of, I would have also thought, though they say they don't take this into consideration, the fact that you made the Sweet 16 last year has to stay in somebody's mind. You're one of the 16 teams that was remaining.
And went to penalties, and that's really a coin toss. We were this close to Elite 8. Yeah, you do hope that. Now, I will say this, right? Everybody needs to know that basketball and women's soccer, right? Basketball generates $1 billion or more than $1 billion. We know that. Obviously, women's soccer isn't. So the one thing that is tough is they try for that first round to regionalize things. Right? Going into the tournament, when I saw all 64 teams, I thought we were going to play Tennessee or LSU. Now, I'm going to give an example. Tennessee Tech was in their final. Right? They lost in their final of their conference tournament because they're like 3 hours, 2.5 hours away. If they would have won, we probably would have played them, right?
And maybe your seed's higher?
Yeah, and I don't know about the seed.
So they try to finagle it to make it.
So it can affect it a little bit, but still a 6 seed is a bit crazy.
Yeah, right. So how does this work in terms of moving on? Is it always higher seed gets to host the next one until at what point are you on neutral?
No. So this round, the first round is a single game over the weekend, right? If we win that, then we go to a pot of 4. Okay. And whoever's left in that pot of 4.
Round robin?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. But it's not a round robin. I mean, it's just 4 teams. And so, I don't like to look past the team. If we were to beat LSU, then more than likely we would play Notre Dame at Arkansas. Right? Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. If ever.
Well, no home field advantage. I mean, if anything.
Yeah, and if we were to beat Notre Dame, then we would more than likely play Arkansas if they continued to win. And that's who we played in the Sweet 16 last year, which is kind of crazy.
Yeah, right. That there would be, it could if you guys are able to take care of business. Do you coach differently in the NCAA tournament?
No.
Is there any different kind of strategy? Is there, one of the things that we always talk about is Selection Sunday hits, and it's like, okay, now you might get a different version of some of these teams because of the level of preparation that they're able to put in for that one singular opponent that is not possible throughout the year, right? When you're playing game Tuesday, game Thursday, game Saturday, right? Whereas, we're playing this team coming up on Saturday, and so now how much of that happens, and how relevant do you think scouting is when it comes to this? Like, how many LSU games will you have to go back and watch to get ready for this game?
Yeah, no, and that's a great question. I mean, we and nowadays, with all the technology and stuff, we have all of their games, but we go back. We may not watch every minute of their last 10 games, but we definitely go back and, just so there's no surprises. I mean, the biggest thing for me is, it's all about the fine details when you get, because in sport, that's what makes or breaks you a lot of the time, right? So it's constantly emphasizing to the kids the fine details and the sharp. But, what is different is the conference tournament, because you're playing 3 games in 6 days. That's
right.
A lot for soccer. And, by the time you get to a conference championship, you're never going to watch a pretty game of soccer in a conference championship, because it's a grind. And that's what we had to do, right? And we were down in Florida. So the last 2 days, a lot of it has just been kind of taking it easy, getting our legs back, right? Because playing those 3 games, and we're in Florida, things had cooled off here, and all of a sudden we're playing day games. You're in the, it's 80-something degrees out, so it took a lot out of us. But no, I mean, it's really about the further you go, it's more and more about just the fine little details.
How is women's soccer different than men's soccer?
I don't think it's really that much difference, and that's a topic that you talk to with your buddies and stuff like that. But if if you watch men's and women's basketball, right, there's a big difference. I mean, you got guys that can dunk and all this and all that. Where women's soccer, men's soccer, you're really watching the same thing. It's just a little bit slower pace, obviously, but it's I think it's extremely, when you're breaking down sports that there's a male and female, I think it's as similar as any out there.
That's going to lead me to, look, you've had a million coaching awards, you've got all these championships, you've gotten to, you gotten this team to the NCAA Tournament a bunch of times. I guess you probably get the same question a million times as a male coaching a female sport. Like, did you ever think, like, all right, I'm going to go coach the guys now, right? And why has this been, your passion project for now more than 20 years, and love doing that, and not feel the need to go coach a men's team?
Yeah, and when I first got into coaching at Memphis, because I played at Memphis, I was actually an assistant for both the men and women, and just I didn't know which way. I probably was leaning more towards the men, and just it kind of, I started coaching full-time with a club team, and I didn't have time for both, and I had to make a choice, and I picked women, just, almost like flipping a coin. And, my opportunity to become the head coach kind of happened as a fluke, right? I mean, anyway, so... But now
I want to hear this. Were you just around and give it to Brooks?
Yeah, basically. I mean, that's about the truth. I mean, it's the head coach at the time. He was from Ohio, and his father got really sick, and so he had a choice. And he decided, it was like in June or July, preseason starts in August, that he was going to go back and spend time with his father. So there wasn't a lot of time to hire anybody. So literally, they said, I was an assistant at the time. I was just a goalkeeper coach, and they said, hey, do you want to be interim coach? And, I was like, sure, what the hell, And I'll never forget, Chris.
How old were you?
I was like 27, I think.
Wow.
Yeah, so pretty young. Dumber then than I am now, I can guarantee you that. And I'll never forget, because at that point in my career, all I had ever done was coach goalkeepers. I had never even run a full team session. I'd never recruited a kid.
Wow.
And so I remember the first day, walking into the office. I never spent any time in the office. I didn't have an office. But I went to the office, and I just kicked my feet up on the desk, and I'm like, what the hell do I do now? So I called the college, a guy that I played with at Memphis in college.
I also need to tell everybody, I coached my daughter's team last year.
Yeah.
And I said, what the hell do I do? So I can Google it.
Yeah.
That time, the internet's not available where you can just Google how to coach.
Hell, I couldn't even
team.
email a friend. They didn't have email back then. But yeah, I called up a friend that was in coaching that I played with at Memphis. He said, man, I'll join you. And, you know, and man, the rest is history.
Who is it, R.C. Johnson? It's R.C.?
R.C. was yes.
AD at the time?
He was the AD at the time. And we got lucky, right? Because actually the year that I was named interim, that was 2000, we happened to have the best season in the 5-year program history. And so, you know, they gave me a chance, man.
Well, and you also, right, Rising Tide, you got D'Angelo going.
Yep.
Calipari's just gotten hired, right?
Yep,
so there's a bunch going on at that athletic department.
Yeah, a lot going on that they didn't give a shit. They didn't give a damn about soccer, right? And so they gave me that opportunity, and you know what? But then, you know, I'm so grateful for it because I couldn't see myself doing any other thing out there. And you know, you ask about men and women, and you know, it's the difference is, you know, I think the biggest difference is the girls listen a lot more, you know. And man, if I was coaching men, I still have this fire in me, even though I'm 50 years old. I don't know.
You be butting heads.
Yeah. I'll just keep it at that. Probably so.
The guy that's sulking on the bench for not getting to play or whatever. What about parents?
Yeah, you know, very rarely when they get to college are you you know, dealing with parents, because at the end of the day, I'm a parent, and I get it. I see things a little bit different now that I am a parent, but you know, we all think our kids are better than they are. You know, let's be honest.
Look,
right?
I'm out at Mike Rose all the time. These parents are nutty.
Yeah, and
I can't imagine being a coach.
But I don't have to deal with it too much. Throughout my career, I've had a few cases, and you know, some of them actually been fun, right? Because they'll, you know, kind of challenge you, and it's, you know, I'm a coach. This is what I do for a living, you know. And but no, thankfully enough, most of the parents are, you know, they cheer on their kids from the stands.
All right, this version of the Memphis women's soccer team is successful in the NCAA tournament. What do you guys have to do in order to, you know, the things that, and I don't want to say keep you up at night, but the things that you know you're going to have to do well in order to be successful in this tournament?
Yeah, I mean, there's several things. I talked about the fine details, right? And, you know, I think that, you know, this is through experience. Now, this team is a very mature team. I've coached all different types of teams, but, you know, some teams I've coached in the past, they were satisfied with, you know, winning a regular season conference championship or winning a conference tournament, right? And with this group, I mean, I have the faith that they're not satisfied, right? So it's my job as a coach, as the manager of the team, to just to make sure that that's going the right way. But you know, it takes a little bit of luck, right? But it's really the focus, and you know, every team I coach every year is different, but with this group, it's playing for each other. And you know, this is a really tight-knit group. I mean, they love each other. Mm-hmm. And you know, at the end of the day, it's you know, we as coaches try to create this atmosphere, this family atmosphere, because what will we do for our family, right? We'll go to war, we'll take, you know, we'll step in front of a train for our family. So it's really keeping that thing going, you know. And I think that's one of the reasons. Yes, we're talented, but I think that's one of the main reasons we've really had the success is because these kids really love each other and they're playing for each other.
7 o'clock on Saturday night, LSU, and it's at Memphis, so people can go out there. And I saw the thing about the all-time attendance record. I have no doubt in my mind that you will break the attendance record.
I hope so, man.
I think for sure you will. I tell you this. That was on a football Sunday, that Temple game I went to during conference play, and you catch a weekend game like that. I mean, there were a lot of people there. Yeah. A lot.
Yeah, and there's nothing, you know, from what I've been told, you know, I mean, obviously our football team's out of town, and there's not any other Memphis sports going on. So,
no.
I mean, I really hope, that the city will get behind this team. It's a pretty special group of kids, and I'm very proud of. And it makes a big difference, man. When you really fill those stands, I mean, the kids feel that energy, and it really does help.
Well, and it's NCAA tournament, right?
That's
and
right.
It's a big name opponent that everybody has an awareness of for sure. So Saturday night, 7 o'clock, get on out to it's right off. It's right at Get Well at Park, the South Campus,
Yeah,
right?
the South Campus. Some people call it South Campus. Some people call it Park Avenue Campus. Yep, that's right.
Yep. And so you can go check it out there. Thanks for coming in, man.
Man,
and good
thanks
luck.
for having me. I appreciate it.
You guys are going to take care of business.